right? And I learned that the average time it takes to diagnose a bipolar spectrum brain is, you want to guess?
I'm gonna like really lowball guess this now, like um, based on what you just said, I'm gonna assume like 5-10 years, maybe.
11.
Yeah.
For any kind of bipolar spectrum, 11 years. But in the interim, these folks are suffering, and there are friends and there are family, because we're everywhere, and who have not come out and told people we're everywhere. Among the addicted, the incarcerated, the homeless, the suicidal, because it's desperate. It's hell when you're actively in a bipolar flare, and you've got 11 years of misdiagnosis. So one of the doctors, I says, we got to get that down to 11 days. That's the book.
Yeah, two comments arise, one of which is like, with every downslope untreated or uncared for, and not most people are not, I would assume, lucky enough to have very like high quality, loving, well integrity relationships. A lot of people are, but certainly not most people are somewhere in the middle of the wavering, and some people are like really just don't have any of that at all. And
Yeah.
every time you hit the down, those relationships degrade even further, your life
Right.
context degrades even further. Even
Yeah.
when you do come out of that sort of like depression, at that point, like what kind of resources are there for you to start building yourself back up so the next one doesn't take you even deeper until you're so deep that you are, like so deep and so wounded and so traumatized by all of this that even the moments that you're not in your deep depression, what kind of a sort of healthy mind is available to you to do anything other than just grapple with the consequences of a broken life?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hear you, James. I mean, I know, were it not for my family and my good husband and friends, I could be on the streets or worse. I mean, I put a disclaimer in my book because I am fortunate that way. I have tremendous resources in the sense of community and family. And I think because my mother had gone through this, my three siblings, that's when they show up, because they know, we have our lives, but when one of us goes down, and, I was the one that really got the bipolar gene, it looks like, boom, they're there. So, most people don't have that, I think, or a lot of people don't. And I think you're absolutely right. I think there's an official term called medical trauma, that people can actually be traumatized by the trauma they've had. In the US, I don't know the exact figures, but I believe it's something like half of all people incarcerated have some form of mental illness. And that's our system. We throw people in jail, or on the streets, and it's woefully inadequate.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of, I think, very fair and valid reasons to be uncomfortable with mentally unwell people who are homeless. Like there's a lot of, I think, fairly valid reasons to be uncomfortable about that. Okay. As a person who isn't that, walking past them in your neighborhood, etc. Those are good,
Yeah.
valid reasons. And to me, those valid reasons sort of only speak to the absolute importance of having social services to support those people as a part of our, I mean, we're in a different situation, sort of like where our tax money is going to support these people. And the reason I bring up that sort of story is because the very reasonable sort of like discomfort, and even at times, I think, fair fear, right? Without the compassion piece that recognizes that there's like a lot of things would have needed to happen in order for a person to get there. That if those things happened to me, and I didn't have a good support system around me, the likelihood that I would be exactly where they are is very high.
Yeah,
Right. And
absolutely.
so without
Yeah.
that sort of piece of compassion, the discomfort and the fear can turn into resentment and hatred and, violence in some extent. And then from that, there's that sort of informs, oh, well, why are you wasting your tax money on these? Just get them out of there. Like this kind of thinking. So I bring it up because like, I don't think my listeners need this, right? But it's always nice to be reminded of that sort of like human piece, so that the discomfort, perhaps the fear, etc., with the compassion translate into a greater care and desire for those people to be supported by services rather than it emerging as resentment, hatred, etc.,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
judgment. Although judgment is totally fair, of course we're going to judge, but how we respond to the recognition that we're judging is still in our power if we wanted to, and the compassion piece helps with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I talk about a pandemic-induced mental health tsunami.
Oh, yeah.
And the good news about that, I never thought I would say good news, is that, according to National Alliance of Mental Illness in the States here, we've got 1 in 5 people with some kind of mental challenge right now, 1 in 5. So there is not a single person in this country that doesn't know somebody, one or more or many, that are suffering right now. That, according to our Surgeon General, 1 in 2 young people is dealing with anxiety or depression. So no matter where you fall on the health spectrum, I think, or the political spectrum, people are suffering. And, the opioid crisis and all of that, that's all related to mental health in some situations too. So I think people, because there's so much of it around now, people are beginning to, open their hearts more and maybe be desperate for how do we help this loved one who's struggling. And that's part of why I and now a number of people, it's so interesting, in 2022 have come out with their story. Because if we can normalize that this is your mother, your brother, your sister, your best friend, or this person that you have revered, Selena Gomez, or some other celebrity. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get services to move in that direction.
And I think what you're speaking...
And research. We need research too.
Yeah. And I think what you're speaking to just then brings back the other comment I had,